Welcome to Conversations. I'm Sadar Khan, your host. And today I'm going to talk to you about a development which many people might not notice, but which is probably going to have a long term impact on US India relations. Not only in terms of the relations, but it could have a very immediate impact on the negotiations which are still ongoing about the bilateral trade agreement. As you understand, that broadly India and the United States had issued a joint statement in which they talked about the broad terms of the trade, the big items being that India had committed to buying $500 billion worth of US goods over the next 5 years. A lot of it was going to be from US energy sources, and the US was going to eliminate the 25% tariffs on for buying Russian oil and reduce the total tariffs to 18% only, which was a better deal than most in the region. But this particular statement that one of America's Deputy Secretary of State, I want to just show you the article itself. This is from Bloomberg. So Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau, while talking about the India-US trade deal and the negotiations that are going on about it, he said the US won't give India the same kind of economic advantages it gave China, which allowed China to become a major challenger to the United States. To read it correctly, the US won't give India the same kind of economic advantages it gave China, which allowed that country to emerge as a major competitor. China is now considered a peer competitor to the United States, I mean, it's a bigger deal than even the Soviet Union. At the peak, the Soviet Union had less than 15% share of the global GDP. The US was above 50% at that time during the entire Cold War. So America's economic challenges were mostly Japan and Germany, who were their geopolitical allies. But right now, China is not only the economic challenger to the United States as the second biggest economy with a growth rate which is 5%, more than double that of the United States, which averages around 2%. China is the biggest military challenger to the United States. China is a tech challenger to the United States. China is also challenging the leadership of the United States in the rest of the world through its Belt and Road Initiative. And China is also challenging the United States in matters of soft power too, as an alternative model to the West from an economic perspective. So the United States, which essentially helped China become a major power by bringing, especially Bill Clinton, bringing it into the World Trade Organization, giving it a most favored nation status on trade, and then basically bringing in billions and billions of American dollars to invest in China, in its technological capacity, in its manufacturing. Just the pursuit of cost efficiency and poor and cheap labor in China, and the timing was perfect with the global liberalization of economies. China benefited hugely. China and India are the two biggest beneficiaries of globalization. Undoubtedly, together they have removed 1.2 billion people out of poverty. China 800 and India about 450 million people have been lifted out of absolute poverty. So the United States has recognized that China's economic growth, technological growth, military growth, etc., has essentially been because of the measures that the United States took to take advantage of China's cheap labor. So yes, the US has definitely benefited. Even the US has benefited significantly from globalization. It is still the world's biggest economy, still has 26% of the share of the global GDP. But it now faces a peer competitor in China, and they are recognizing the dilemma of that. You know, on my show in the past, on many times, I have said this repeatedly, that if you know what Mount Rushmore is a mountain here in the United States where four prominent American presidents have been carved into the mountain. So you can see the faces of four American presidents. These are the most important people who made America. So I have said jokingly on many occasions, if there was a Chinese Mount Rushmore, the people who will be on those Mount Rushmore would probably be Mao, Deng Xiaoping, Xi Jinping, and Bill Clinton should be one of the four people who made China. So So increasingly, Americans have recognized that in order to balance the Soviet Union, they have made so many concessions to China that it has become a challenger. And they will not allow the same thing to happen with India, trying to use India as a balancer to China. That is what the Americans have been doing for the last 25 years. And it started with the nuclear deal, lifting sanctions of India, including it into the shall we say, the commercial side of the nuclear regime globally, etc., and then investing in India. So the United States has been sort of grooming India to be a partner in its efforts to contain China in the Indo-Pacific, the Quad, the I2U2, and the numerous, huge number of military and other cooperations that the US has with India, giving India a huge advantage in many other sectors, etc. All of this has been going on for about 25 years, but this particular administration has become aware of the fact that if we continue to do what we did with China, that is, strengthen China to weaken the Soviet Union, and now if we strengthen India to weaken China, India will become another peer competitor. And that is a major development. And I think the shadow of this thought, look, it doesn't matter if America also has some dependencies in India. But the arrogance that India had in the past, where it said, oh, India doesn't need America, but America needs India, that was the belief in India until recently, till Trump became president and then completely sent another signal by imposing the highest tariffs on India and Brazil over the rest of the world. So this idea that India doesn't need the US is wrong. I'm going to, in this show, I'm going to talk to you about India's dependencies on the US. And then you can decide for yourself how serious it is. Even if the Trump administration does not take any direct steps to impede India's economic development and growth, just the very awareness of the idea that if we allow India to grow at such a rapid pace, it is one day going to challenge our hegemony and our domination itself should be seen in India as a very troubling development. So if I was advising the Indian government, I would say take this comment seriously, even though it's not coming from Trump, it's not coming from J.D. Vance, nor from Marco Rubio, but not such a... Landau is a deputy secretary of state. So anyway, he's a bit lower in the pecking order. But the fact is that he's thinking like this, which means there is this thought has been discussed in the administration. That is the worrying side of it. So let me give you a few examples just off the cuff, okay? What I can think of. Number one, when it comes to trade, goods and services, America is India's biggest trading partner at about $130 billion. India's biggest export partner, India's biggest export is to the US at $80 billion. And India even today has a $50 billion trade surplus with the US. Of the top 10 trading partners that India has a trade deficit with every country in the top 10. India is a net importing country. India imports more than it exports, unlike China. And it's like the US in that sense. US also imports more than it exports. But with the United States, India has a $50 billion trade surplus. So it is a huge advantage to India in that sense. So now with this trade tariffs, etc., we have to wait and see the whole year as to what has happened to that trade surplus. And if India has a $50 billion trade surplus and it fulfills its obligation to the US by buying $500 billion worth of additional stuff from the US in the next 5 years, which means it is increasing its imports by $100 billion every year, which means that the deficit of a surplus of $50 billion will become a deficit of $50 billion. Now, there's all this gray area now as a result of the Supreme Court's decision, which basically labeled Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs, which means that 18% as illegal. And that has now changed to 15% because for the next 150 days, which is 5 months, the United States has imposed a 15% across the board tariffs on all countries. So, nevertheless, it's a 3% advantage for India. But the point that we have to ask is, does that mean India will still commit to buying $500 billion? So this is an important trading partner, no doubt, for India. It is slightly more than India's total trade with China. But with China, India has a $100 billion deficit out of a trade of 125. So India exports just about 20 plus $billion to China and imports over 100 plus. But India also has services trade with the US, which is more or less same. India exports about $45 billion worth of services and imports about $45 billion worth of services from the US. India's IT industry, which is the key part of India's growth story, a majority, 70% of all of India's IT services go to the US. Without the US market, India's IT services will collapse. Literally millions and millions of jobs will be lost in India. So India's dependence on the US in the IT sector is very profound, 70%. So that is very important. Jobs, careers, people becoming engineers and going into IT sectors, investments, startups, all of these are dependent on India-US IT services trade. One of the great big sources for India's current account is remittances from abroad. India receives more than 100 plus $billion in remittances from Indians who work abroad, and 35% of it comes from the US. So every year about 35 to 40 billion dollars are sent by Indian Americans to India back as remittances. That brings in nearly $40 billion of foreign currency into India, which is a big source of maintaining India's current account and make sure that India has $600-700 billion of reserves. And those reserves are important. Every time the value of rupee falls, the Reserve Bank of India sells dollars to reduce the demand for dollars. And it can only do that if it has a reserve of dollars. And that is also very important for India because India is a big importer of energy, especially oil and gas. And most of oil and gas business is done in dollars. But on the other side, there is a huge dependence. Literally, until last year, 300,000 plus Indian students were studying in the US. Right now, India is the biggest sender of international students to the US. That shows as to how badly India needs American universities to produce a high quality of Indian diaspora, highly educated diaspora. You're not going to get great engineers graduating from Galgotia or Gargotia University that is in India. But yes, many Indians who come here to Harvard, Stanford, and other major universities then go on to become CEOs of major global companies. So that is an important aspect. If you look at India's defense sector, India's Tejas 1 attempt to create a domestic, this is part of India's Atmanirbhar project, to produce a domestic jet fighter, which is Tejas 1. They have about 32 of them. They have just been removed from service because of some systemic problems, but its engine 404 comes from the US. India has just ordered $1 billion worth of 99 additional 404 engines for the next few years that it'll be making Tejas 1. Tejas 2, India's, and the next generation of Tejas, which is again going to be based on 414, another American jet engine. So that way, if you look at it, India's dependence on America and technology, etc., is very profound. In fact, the services, all the platforms that Indians use, whether it is YouTube, whether it's Google, whether it's Meta, whether it is Amazon, are profound. These are big investors in India. In this year alone, both Google and Amazon have promised to build $50 billion worth of data centers in India. Right now, India is the biggest producer of data, but all the data is either housed in the US or in Singapore, either in Singapore or Virginia. This is the places. So building all of that funding that is coming from the US. As of now, already the US has invested about $60 billion in Indian economy, and then additional 50 over the next 10 years have been promised just by Google and Amazon, and then there are those who are also going to invest in India's IT sector. Macron has established a semiconductor company in India, and I also wanted to point out that there is also this whole geopolitical alliance, a dependence on intelligence. After the Galwan episode, there was another episode with Chinese incursion in the Arunachal Pradesh area, and India received real-time warning from the US. In fact, advanced, so India was able to wait for the Chinese incursion and push it back and literally defeated them and beat them up literally. If you go and read about that happened in 2022, 2 years after the Galwan. So there's a profound dependence on this, and all of this was happening. So now the question to me is, if the US administration, Trump administration, is thinking that we cannot allow India to become a major power in such a way that it challenges us, then what steps is it going to take to prevent that? That is the question. That is the serious question that we have to ask. India has essentially moved out of the Soviet Union and Russian defense orbit, has now become increasingly dependent militarily on Western powers. India has bought the second, just invested about $30 billion to buy additional 114 Rafales from France, which is a NATO power ally of the United States. India has committed to buying additional $10 billion worth of weapons from Israel, which is essentially dependent on the US for its very existence. And India has, also bought drones, etc., from the US. So does India need to fundamentally rethink its grand strategy? And then you might be tempted to say, but Dr. Khan, he's just a Deputy Secretary of State. He just, Chris Landau just made one particular comment. We should not take that seriously. We should chuck it away, ignore it, and India should continue to pursue its strategic partnership. Remember, MAGA plus MEGA is mega. Modi's philosophy. MAGA is make America great again, and MEGA is make India great again. And if he said MAGA and MEGA come together, it will become mega. That's exactly what the US now thinks it doesn't want. So this is a very serious development, and its shadow is going to have an impact on India-US relations. The question that India needs to ask is, does it need to rethink its grand strategy, given that there is this consciousness and this awareness in India? So the way I describe it sometimes is that now the US is going to drive the India-US strategic partnership with a handbrake on. So it's not going to just put it in fifth gear and press the accelerator button so that the two become very close partners. What it's going to do is, yes, it will continue to partner because the US also has to benefit. The US wants people to come here who are talented. The US, in spite of everything the Trump administration is saying about H-1B and others and some conservative jokers. Remember, right-wing parties, wherever they are hateful, they are stupid, and they say stupid shit all the time. All the right-wing parties, wherever they say stupid shit all the time. They are foolish and they are full of hate. So just like that, like in India, in the US too, we have these conservatives who keep saying stupid things all the time, but the policies are not like that. Like Donald Trump himself said, there will be no more wars, no more endless wars, no more regime change, etc. He made all these promises during the elections, and now he's fighting in Iran and even considering putting boots on the ground. So yes, there will be a lot of hatred. Right now, there's a lot of anti-India, anti-Hindu hatred increasing, not just in India, but in most of the Western countries, partly because of mass migration. But I think that there is a US dependence on India too. It will need India for lots of things, supply of IT services, supply of IT engineers. It also buys, in fact, India is one of the biggest in terms of volume, not in dollars. India's exports in dollars in pharmaceuticals to the US is very low, about $7 or $10 billion. But in terms of volume, so it's sending cheap medicines to the US. but the amount of medicine it sends is very high. So there is a US dependence on India in some ways too. So if US stops buying Indian pharmaceuticals, it will have to buy it from somewhere else. If it goes to Europe, the prices will triple definitely. So yes, the US also has dependence, and the US also will continue to toy with this idea that in case we need India's help, India might support us if we get into a major war with China. But using India in the Indo-Pacific, it will continue. We will see what happens uh, with regards to the Quad summit. You see, India is the chair this year, and there is no Quad summit. In fact, those meetings have gone. If you remember, during the Biden administration, not only heads of states were meeting with Quad, there was an annual 2x2, which means that the Indian foreign minister and defense minister would meet with the Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense, now Secretary of War. So those 2x2 meetings also have, there hasn't been one. Even though Rajnath Singh came to the US to buy some drones, uh, and we don't see Dr. Jaishankar visiting the US as frequently as he used to under the Biden administration, which the Modi administration didn't like. They wanted a right-wing government here. You remember the slogan, "Ab ke baar Trump Sarkar." Anyway, so this is a very serious development. I think it is very serious because this people are going to talk about, like I'm talking about it. My show is there. There are my students, there are media people who watch my show, policymakers here in the US, in Europe, in Australia. My top viewership is about, I get now, at first I used to get about 80% viewers in India. But now on this, I too have two channels. So on my global channel, there are 0% Indians watch. So most of the viewership comes from UK, Canada, US, the Middle East. I'm also now getting people from Japan who are watching the show. Welcome to all of you. And then, of course, on my other channel, 80% of the viewership comes from India. So there are policymakers who watch. I was in India in January and spent 12 days in Delhi, and I met many people from the Indian policy community, from think tanks, from universities. And to me, it was very heartwarming that I hardly met anybody who had not watched a few of conversations. So just as I'm talking about it, lots of people, I was looking at my WhatsApp this morning, and a lot of think tankers were chit-chatting. I mean, there's a lot of buzz going on about this particular statement coming from the US. There are some people, in fact, one of my friends just made the observation. Let me read it out to you. I'm not going to tell you who he is, but he says that this is bigger than the Iran war. So this is Dr. Kamran Bukhari, who on his Twitter, he says, this is bigger than the Iran war, this awareness in the United States that we have to ensure that we control India's growth and development in such a way that while we both benefit from the partnership, we have to make sure that India does not become powerful enough to ever challenge the United States. So I'm going to stop with that. That is my brief, and I'll be happy to read your questions and comments going forward. There is also something that I want to share for those who are members of Conversations. I'm hosting a Zoom conference for members of Conversations. This meeting will be on Sunday. And let me share it with you. Yes, it is going to be on March 8th at 11:30 a.m. New York time and 9 p.m. India time. So please join the channel. And remember, for those of you, the time will change on 7th night. So we will be only 9.5 hours ahead of India. So I'll be having this Zoom meeting for members only. We talk sometimes for 2 hours, a lot of question and answers. Plus, I will be sharing a lot of things that I can't share on the shows about my visit to India and my discussions with policymakers, with think tankers, scholars, and senior journalists in India. So please, if you're not a member of Conversations, do become a member of Conversations. And if you are, like I see John Smith is a member, so please make sure that you do. If you go to the community section of each website. Every YouTube channel has one that says posts, community posts. And if you go to the latest posts, you will see that I will post a link to the Zoom conference itself. So please don't forget to join me there. So now let me look at your comments and questions. Oh, this is a very good question, sir. If AI and physical AI robots are widely proliferated in USA, do you think unemployment will become a giant problem? Not just in USA, but everywhere in the world, AI can, the productivity. So for example, my university is now planning to have many asynchronous courses. So this January, I taught an asynchronous course, which means I'm teaching a class, but I'm not teaching it face to face. So I've created a class which runs on autopilot. And while I was teaching that class, all I did was grading at the end of it. Okay, I did recorded videos and uploaded them, and I realized that theoretically my university can run that course next time without me because I did such a good job of creating an autopilot class. And so I think that is what is going to happen to a lot of us if AI begins to do many of the things that we do. I used to make thumbnails using PowerPoint. Please forgive my technical skills. It used to take me 20 to 30 minutes. Now I use AI to generate thumbnails for me, and it takes 3 to 5 minutes. If I'm using Hindi titles, then it takes a bit longer because still AIs are making spelling mistakes in Hindi and Urdu. But for English thumbnails, it takes less than 2 minutes because, well, it takes 2 minutes to do it. I'm sure other people can do it even faster. So productivity is definitely increasing. So Elon Musk thinks that work will become optional in the near future. And I think that what might happen is we might generate so much wealth that the world will live, all of us will live on some kind of welfare from corporations which are making lots and lots of money, paying lots of taxes. So it is quite possible that we'll be only in governing positions, not workers. So yes, we will see. It's a new territory all the more. I mean, it's fun to speculate about what will happen, but let's wait and see. Thank you, Yash. No, Gulf will not be an American colony. The Gulf will be an Israeli colony, like America. They, now that they have weakened Iran, there is no resistance to Israel in the Middle East. All the Arabs, like, Modi went to Israel to dance and sing. That's what Epstein files say. Well, now all MBS, MBZ, everybody will be going to Tel Aviv to dance and sing and entertain the Israelis. Oh, I saw. Congratulations to everybody in India. What a match it was. India won by 7 runs. 246 and 253. Oh my God, what an amazing match. And I'm so happy for Sanju Samson that he has performed in the 2 most critical games. So good for him. Yes, and of course, I think the final may not be that exciting as the semifinals were. Pyasa Shaitan.
Unknown caller.
Pyasa Shaitan. Don't forget to join the meeting on Sunday, on March 8th for the Zoom conference. Let's see what you're going. So what do you think the future of H1B? Will be more people come here or 100? Apparently only 70 people have paid the $100,000 fee. Only 70. That's a huge surprise for me. So what is going to happen is, I think in the short run, American companies are going to hire those people who are graduating from American universities, even international students, because the $100,000 fee has been waived to them. So if you are doing your MS in the United States, or maybe even bachelor's in engineering, you can straight away get hired. But they are making it difficult by getting rid of OPT, etc., training programs. And I've seen some Indian students complaining that even though they did everything right, like go on OPT and work for a company for 2 years on training visa, and the company promised that they will hire them, and then did not support their H-1B application, even though they did not want to. So among conservative states, remember a lot of IT companies have moved to Texas from California. So Texas has become a major hub, especially Dallas. If you go to Dallas, there are neighborhoods. I mean, like strip malls. We call them strip malls, which are all desi. Like I have cousins who live in Dallas, and one cousin said, "Oh, we will go here and eat dinner. We will go here and eat mithai. We'll go here and eat and have chai, and then we'll go there and eat pan." So like a four different malls. And the whole malls are filled up with Indians and Indian stores and Indian people hanging around. So all this visibility of Indians is also irritating people in. Remember what I said, conservative states ruled by conservative parties, they are very hateful people, and the hate is rising incredibly in Florida and Texas. And so they are going after. I think Florida is banning companies from using H-1B entirely, and Texas hasn't done that yet, but we will see. It's going to. My advice to people is not to bet on it. If you get it, great, because remember the transition from H-1B to green card has become difficult, and from green card to citizenship has also become very difficult. And the US government is also discouraging people incredibly from transitioning from green card to citizenship, especially if your parents have green cards. They are making people who are entering the country to give up green cards and things like that. So so right now I can say that think big at home. India is growing, India is doing well. There is the formal sector in India is not doing well. The informal sector is doing well. So I think, don't think jobs, don't think like a bania, like a bureaucrat. Think like an entrepreneur. So I think those people who go into technical colleges come up with real skills, not like Galgotia University come up with stupid ideas. But to go there, go to the IITs, come out with genuine technical skills, and think of innovation leading to entrepreneurship, I think they will do very well in India. So if you have a chance of starting your own firm, your own consulting, and don't be just service interested, even go into manufacturing side of it. I have an engineering classmate of mine, and I keep meeting him. I'm so proud of him. He's the only guy who does manufacturing, hardcore manufacturing. As he struggles, he says the GST was killing him, etc. But the point is that I think those Indians who acquire technical skills and go towards entrepreneurship. And remember, like I tell my students, like I know many people who went and did their PhDs in Hong Kong, in Taiwan, and have got great jobs in Hong Kong and Taiwan and other places. America is not the only place to go. You can go to look at Asian countries where you can go. You can go to Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Malaysia, Indonesia. They need skillful people. One of my SP Jain classmates has lived all his life in Indonesia, has done very well for him. So yes, look at alternatives. Yes, life in the West is still very good from a salary perspective, from benefits perspective, from a democracy perspective. In fact, of everything, US is a far bigger and a better democracy than most democracies, including India. So yes, there are lots of advantages, but there is this whole fear that the white people are going to become a minority in the countries. So this white anxiety is creating a very anti-migrant and anti-mass migration sentiment, which is translating into hate and repressive policies that you can see the way ICE is treating people who are brown, essentially. Let us see. We'll try to see what happens. Okay, I will try to finish it up early or late. Thank you. Uh, well, this is a very good point. There are two Americas, and I tell this to my students. I think half of America has a per capita income of $150 million, $50,000, $150,000, half of America. So America's uh, total America's per capita income is $90,000, but half of America makes on an average of $150,000, and half of America makes $20,000, which means that we have two halves, and one half is 7 times richer than the other half. The same in India too. I look at India as 12 countries. It has two Frances or true Germanys. Okay, so about 140 million people, 10% of India lives a lifestyle like any European country. So India has two Germanys and 10 Afghanistans, or 20 Afghanistans, and the rest of the 130 million people. So about 15 million people live 150 million people, which is 10% of the population, lives like Europeans. And then 1,300 million people, 1.3 billion people, live life which is very bad. Do you know what the median income in India is? It is 8,000 rupees. So if you're making 10,000 rupees, you're making more than half the country. So half of all Indians are making less than you, which is less than $300 a month, which is very scary, isn't it? And then there are people in the top echelon who are making $50,000, $60,000 a year. So if you're making $300, which is like $3,500 a year, then you are making more than half of India. So yes, it's going to happen everywhere. Unfortunately, that there will be a small population which will be very rich and large population which will be very poor, which will lead to political instability in most countries. And that is why you see a lot of political instability in the United States today. Test cricket is the best. And 60 overs would be fun to watch. Gavaskar once scored 36 in 60 overs. I think it was against Sri Lanka. Mr. Khan, forget India. Give a single country except Israel. Americans do not want to control. It's Afghanistan. They left and went away, tried for 20 years. Yeah. It's not about control. The United States is number one in everything. It's the world's biggest economy, it's the richest country in the world, it is the world's biggest military. So by virtue of being one in everything, even in technology and innovation, etc., the US is number one. So it is status quo power. It doesn't want things to change, because any change, it's like saying you're the top number one cricketing player. If things change, you could become number two, and you don't want that. So you don't want things to change. And that is what America's position is. When Britain was number one, it didn't want things to change. It was a status quo power. When the Ottomans were ruling the world, most of the world for 400-500 years, they didn't want any change. So basically, status quo power, number one powers are status quo powers. Aditya says, sir, how India should make a change is grand strategy considering signals coming from US. How did India? So the problem with Indian grand strategy, I wrote a piece in, you should read this. It is in the Frontline magazine. Let me see if I can quickly pull it up. Frontline magazine, Muqtadar, India grand strategy. So I have also posted this article. If you search around the web, you will find the PDF also of this article. So in this article, I have argued that there's a lot of bullshit coming out of Delhi. Oh, we are the world's fastest growing economy, this and that. Let me tell you something. In 2020, which is just 5 years ago, in 2020, America was a $21 trillion economy. Google it. And today, America is a 31 trillion economy. So in 5 years, America has grown by $10 trillion, or two and a half Indias. So in 5 years, we have added two and a half Indias to our GDP. And you tell me that India is the fastest growing country with just $4 trillion. Just because just because the growth rate is higher in numbers, it doesn't mean you're the fastest growing. It's like saying you're making 10,000 rupees a month and you are growing at 20%. Great. You go from 10,000 to 12,000 rupees. But if I'm making $100,000 and I grow up by 2%, that is $2,000. That is 2 lakh rupees straight up. So my growth is 2 lakhs while your growth is 2,000. So yes, it's a higher percentage, but the volume is nothing. You'll be far behind me with every year. So that is something that people in India don't seem to understand, because Modi doesn't take press conferences and the media has become absolutely dumb and useless, does not ask tough questions. So you need to understand that article that I shared just now here, as to India has dependencies, not strategic autonomy, and they need to stop bullshitting itself and become realistic about its capabilities and start planning grand strategy. So let me give you an example. When I was doing my 12th grade in India, the the entrance exam for engineering for getting into an engineering college in Osmania in university and in the state of Andhra Pradesh at that time, and getting into IITs was different. You could not prepare for IITs and assume you can do the engineering entrance exam. You had, for those who were not very smart, you had to make a choice. So those who were not very smart, if they went for both, they lost in both. But those who were very smart, yeah, they went to IIT. But those who were strategically smart, not academically, and made the right choice of which goal to pursue, they were more successful than better students than their students. So what I'm trying to say is that India has to make a proper assessment of its capabilities and its vulnerabilities. India keeps talking about Vishwaguru. What bullshit is that? Who is Vishwaguru? India? All your students, smart students, want to leave the country and go away and study everywhere else. They want to go to Canada, Australia, Europe, Germany. They'll go anywhere. If you are the best in terms of intelligence, it should be the other way around, right? Everybody in the world should be coming to India to study, not the other way around. It's America which is Vishwaguru. That's why everybody comes here. So that's what I'm trying to say. India needs to make a realistic assessment of its capabilities and then go forward accordingly and build. It's like doing a SWOT analysis. If you're a company, you identify what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, look at the environment and see what the opportunities are, what the threats are, and then you develop a strategy to maximize the opportunities and defend yourself from the threats. This is strategy 101. This is what everybody teaches in the first marketing class, first general management class in any business school. That is, if you're attending classes. Savia Chaudhary, you're also a member. Thank you. You were a member already. I think you went out and then you joined again. Thank you. See you on Sunday. Cricket is interesting. It's a drug. It's a way of escaping. It's nearly 5, 6, or maybe 7, 8 years since I've played a real cricket match, but I'm still obsessed about cricket. Look at me. I didn't sleep well last night because I had to get up early to watch the cricket match. And so, yeah, I wrote a very big article on the economic impact with Dr. Santosh Mehra. Both of us collaborated to write a big article on the impact of the Gulf War or this Iran war on the global economy, especially the Indian economy. We were working on it last night, and then we were going back and forth while I was also watching cricket, making edits and changes. I hope it will be published in the next few hours, and I will share it with all of you on my community channel, definitely. John Smith, another member of Conversations. That's a good point. Uh, well, yeah, it's a very interesting thing as to how Obama, I think, was not hateful, but he was hypocritical. See, one of the problems with Obama was once he finished his presidency, he can't take another job. He was not very rich coming in. So when he became president, he had less than 1.5 million net worth. And let me tell you this much, that there was already a scandal about him coming into presidency. There was this perception that some real estate broker had sold him a very expensive house for a much lower price, indirectly benefiting financially. Nobody pursued that legally, so I don't know what happened. But now that he's finished, he's still young, he's in his 50s, he has young children, etc. And so how is he going to live for the next 30, 40 years? Where's the money going to come? It comes from lectures, it comes from consulting services. Okay. So if you go back and look at Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and Obama's, their net worth spiked after their presidencies were over. They made lots of millions and millions. Clinton made $40 million in the first few years. How do they make this? Through lectures and consulting services. But how do you get those? And these are all often billionaires, etc., who are very happy that this, like on his way out, Obama gave $30 billion to Israel. Great, they give him a $30 million contract for something or a lecture, etc. So there's a profound element of corruption which also determines how policies are made towards Israel. Trump took over $100 million from Miriam Adelson alone, who has only one point agenda, which is Israel. So yes, and he needs her to give him more money for the November elections. And then there are other billionaires like that associated with APAC and others who continue to give hundreds of millions of dollars to all these Republicans and anybody who says anything positive about it. Look, Jeffrey, what is it? Hakeem Jeffries, Schumer, they're all Democrats, but they sell their soul to APAC and the Israeli lobby, and they make lots of money. Look at Modi. He got this fake medal. There are a lot of people in India who are thinking that, oh, this is the same medal that Obama and others got. No. The medal that Obama and Clinton and George Bush and Trump, etc., got is called the Israeli Presidential Medal of Honor. The medal that Modi got is the Knesset Speaker Honor. This is the first such award. Nobody else got it. They just invented one and gave it to him. It was not approved by the president of Israel. It was not approved by anybody else except the speaker. He just invented it. They made a fool out of him. So yeah, this is how the Israeli lobby manipulates global leaders in many ways. Please go and Google it. Now there's a Wikipedia page for Israeli Medal of Honors. You can see the list. In fact, I'll do a small show in Hindi about it. Okay. Falak Fatima is getting angry with me. Okay. All right. So oil prices going. So when the war started, the oil price was at 67%. The Brent crude was at $65, $67. It went up to 85 and then came down to 82. And I think today it is 77 oil price. I think it is 77. Let me just check. Oil price is 80. Okay, so this morning it was 77 when I was doing another show. I was on Satya Hindi with Ashutosh talking about American public opinion. So at that time I had checked, it was 77. Right now it's $80. And if the war continues for one more month, and if Iran is able to and stop all traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, which has about 25 to 30% of all global oil goes through it, then the dollar, it can go up to 100, some say even $120 per gallon, per barrel. That could be the rate. But let me tell you, if it remains at 82, 85 for one more month, then in India, the government of India gives subsidy to cooking gas. You know, the cylinder that you buy for cooking gas, that and fertilizers are heavily subsidized in India. India spends close to $2 trillion on subsidy of gas cylinders and fertilizers. The cost of that alone will go above $6 billion. India does not subsidize petrol and diesel. So now the question for the Indian government would be either to allow the prices at the pump to go up, which will cause inflation, or to subsidize it, which means the debt of the country will go up or its budget will get completely topsy-turvy. So it's going to be an economic. That article that I was talking that I wrote with Dr. Santosh Mehrotra discusses in detail the economic aspects of it. It should be up in the next 24 hours. So just Google my first name, Muqtadar, impact, oil impact on Indian economy. That should pop up. Oh, okay. Sir, will lower tariffs for India by USA affect the government? So India had a slight advantage. Bangladesh had a deal for 20%, Pakistan 19%, and then eventually India got 18%. So India was getting a 1% edge for government competition. Sri Lanka also has 20%, but Sri Lanka doesn't compete in the sector. India, Bangladesh, Pakistan are in the low end market of garments. Sri Lanka is on top. It seems all of the heavy, expensive garments, sports clothes, etc., come from Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka is not exactly competing with India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, but these three countries are. So with 18%, we thought that India had an advantage. But then there was a caveat. And the caveat is that if Bangladesh imports cotton from the US, then Bangladesh would not pay any taxes on those exports to the US. It gave Bangladesh a huge advantage. That offer was made to India also, but India cannot import cotton because it will affect its domestic farmers' agriculture. So India has been saying, oh, we will protect our farmers, etc. And one way in which they do is by not importing cotton, not importing soya beans, etc. Bangladesh was not a cotton producing country. It was importing cotton from India and then exporting to Western countries. UK, US are the big markets, and then Europe. So for Bangladesh, it is now an advantage because they can import cotton instead of importing it from India, which India is not selling them anyway because the relations are not very good. So they can import the cotton from the US. It will be expensive. But the fact that they will have to not pay any tariffs on it will compensate, and their price will remain competitive, therefore. So, but with Pakistan, now everybody is paying 15%. So that advantage that India had with 18% is neutralized. Oh, wow. That's interesting. I did not read that. Look, you know, the third crash of the Tejas, one crash happened in November in in the Dubai, and India is still investigating. There's no report as to why Tejas crashed. Then recently another Tejas crash, but Indian Air Force says no. HAL says it is an incident, not an accident. But the assumption is that the brakes or something failed with that particular Tejas. So they're pulling it out, and they pulled out all the Tejas. India has about 30 to 30 or 32 Tejas, and they were all pulled out. I actually wrote a whole article on Indian Air Force crisis. Just Google it. In fact, I can just give you the link that I published about this whole. So what I think is happening is that uh, uh, Indians are not doing a good job of servicing these foreign jets. Uh, that or jets, not just foreign, even Tejas. So I think they're not doing a good job of servicing them. So they're having small technical crisis, and that technical crisis is perhaps what must have happened to these jets. Either they are too old, and so they should be put out of service, or they are not being serviced well enough. Remember, Modi went to Oman and got 20 Jaguars, which Oman decided to retire. India got them. I don't know whether they got it free or they bought them. But why are you buying 1990s Jaguars? Because they want to cannibalize it. So India has old Jaguars, so they want to take out parts from this plane and put it in that plane so it can fly. That is a dangerous strategy. That is a cheap strategy. That is not the world power with the fastest growing economy and the third largest economy, whatever Modi says. You're behaving like a cheap third world country, cannibalizing from old parts. It's called jugaad. One thing that Indians need to understand is that jugaad and innovation are not the same thing. Anyway, so I just shared that article that I wrote, just came out last week, on the crisis in Indian Air Force. I go into detail with all the technical side of it also. If you're interested, Pranay, read that piece. It's in the front line. Last question. This is a very tough one. What will be the most optimal alternate choice for India to import petroleum other than Iranian routes? Well, they're buying it from the Gulf. They can't buy from Russia. The sanctions will come back. So where else can they buy from? There is only one, which is the US and Canada, which means the distance is long, which means the ships will be taking longer to travel, which means insurance on ships will go up, cost of transportation will go up, plus the oil and gas from US and Canada is more expensive than in the Gulf. So India can buy from Venezuela, from the US, from Canada, if it can't buy from Russia and the Gulf. Well, this is the only alternatives. It's tough for countries which are dependent on foreign energy at the situation. And if this war continues beyond a few weeks, if it goes into months, look at the wars. The Russia-Ukraine war has gone on for 4 years. The US, Afghanistan, 20 years. US, Iraq, I don't know, 15 years. If wars are going to last so long, only India-Pakistan was 100 hours, Operation Sindhu. So if this goes on, then it will be really bad news for people. Anyway, thank you for watching Conversations. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, press the bell icon. And for those of you who are members, remember this, we have this conference on the 8th of March. And if you're not a member, you can easily become a member. And if you go to the post section, any YouTube channel you go, it says videos, shorts, live, and posts. So click the post, and then I will have the link to the Zoom meeting there. Thank you for watching, and all the best, and good luck, and congratulations to all the Indians who are watching cricket. India is in the finals and will be playing New Zealand. Take care. Bye.